Hello everybody, and welcome back to the radio shop and part 2 of the Kenwood TS 520 SE repair series. Now in our last video, part 1, if you have not seen that, I'll leave a link down below to part 1, and I'll also leave a link back down to the mail time when this radio arrived, in case you haven't seen any of those videos. But in part 1, we took this TS520 and was able to bring it back to life and get it receiving and transmitting. Actually, there was nothing really to do on the transmitting, just fix that stubborn VFO, the VFO switch, function switch, and get that working, and that brought our indicator lights back up, and that pretty much got the radio up. Now I know that was a lot of long, tedious work, and that video ran about an hour and 21 minutes, I believe. Not knowing that there was about an hour and a half of other footage on this repair that y'all did not see, and I edited out some of that and decided to save it for another video. It takes when I do a repair, I might shoot footage the whole way through, and sometimes it's just not feasible to put it all in one video. You know, especially stuff that's long and drawn out, like that function switch was. If I would have done that and, you know, did a complete video on that and showing the complete video of the removal of the VFO to get to the indicator board, and that would have been a tremendously long video, and I don't want the people to get too bored, so I like to split it up in, you know, some sections, maybe some hour of video footage or so. But a viewer asked about, he had noticed that I had mentioned the VFO and this was stuck, and you know, you could turn the dial but you saw nothing else move, and it would not change frequency or anything. Well, I omitted that part of the repair on purpose, because you remember when we went to test, I had connected the external VFO, the VFO 520S, and it was having some problems tuning in other stations, while the VFO on the radio would tune them in with no problem. And what I decided to do was to put the repair of the radio's VFO and the repair of this external VFO in one video. So y'all get to see the repair of the radio's VFO already pre-recorded, and you'll see as we walk through the problem with the external VFO. Now, not only did we have a problem where it was hard to tune anyone in without sitting there and playing with it, we also noticed we got quite a bit of backlash on this VFO knob. And if I'll go in here and move in on it pretty good, so y'all can see it. As I move the knob, you see the outer ring and the internal dial is not moving. Now that's not a lot of little, you know, it's not a lot of play at all, but it's aggravating when you're trying to tune in a weak station or CW stations when this is moving like this, and it'll throw you off quite a bit. But I'm already pretty sure what the problem is inside the VFO that's causing the issue where it's, you know, it doesn't want to tune in, and I always call it the wobble effect. And I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. 9 times out of 10 it's old grease that is in the mechanism and at the end of the pivot for the rotor. You know, the rotor is grounded, the stator is isolated on the capacitor. So when that rotor sits in there and it's turning, it has to be grounded on both ends of it. And this grease that's in this here, I've seen it so many times and been through so many of these 520s and the VFOs that, you know, that grease gets so hard and you lose conductivity between the rotor and the ground loop, and that leaves the VFO rotor kind of open, so it's, you know, it gets isolated too, and it'll actually make it, when you tune in on something, that you'll get this wobbling sound, and that's what it is. It's just losing this ground, and it's shifting off frequency and back on frequency so quickly that it makes it sound like a wobble. So we'll go ahead and get this thing opened up, and we'll get inside of it, and I'll load up the video also of repairing the VFO on the radio. Okay, I've got all the screws removed out of the case at the top, and we'll go ahead and lift this off, and we'll both get, or all of us will get, the first chance to look inside of this. I haven't even been in it yet myself. And you're probably noticing something that don't look right to start with. Yeah, there's some loose wires here, and it look like they go to the lights. So we'll have to repair this. Now I did notice that the LEDs was working. The RIT and the VFO LED was working. So that's kind of interesting. But we'll have to troubleshoot this on the schematic and see what's going on here. Now, unlike the radio itself, this VFO mechanism is a whole lot easier to remove. You know, you don't have all the circuit boards, and you know, and they're fairly identical. You can see it. And another interesting thing, Burghardt Amateur Center, Watertown, South Dakota. Now I don't know if this was a replacement VFO that's been put in this, or if it was sent to them for repair at one time, or why it has that sticker on it. But it is there for some reason. You know, looks like there's another decal that's, okay, that's the factory decal that covers one of the holes here. But you know, looking at this VFO and that VFO, they are pretty much identical. So I think the first thing we need to do is grab one of our standard tip small screwdrivers. And we'll go ahead and remove the knob. And there are two standard screws in the VFO knob. And that will slide right off. Now we got to remove the outer ring here, and it's held on by two small Phillips screws. And we'll just loosen those up, and now you can see our outer ring slides right off. So there's only should be two screws on the bottom here. There's one that's recessed in the hole, and then this screw that holds the bottom on, that will release the bottom of the VFO. Let me grab another screwdriver here. And sorry about the noise from the heat. Just got off of work, got home, went in the house, did a few things. Came right out here in the shop. It's in the 40s today, and it's about 55 here in the shop at the moment. Now, as you see, there's 2 screws here. I'll go ahead and remove these 2. Okay. And what I'm going to have to do now is go ahead and remove the bottom, and this bezel has to come off because they've got a screw right under here that's also going through the VFO support plate. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the bottom cover. Now you get right down to a bare piece of equipment. I went ahead and, you know, we got both of these screws removed. Now we'll just turn this around. You have to be a little careful with it, you know, because now the back place is loose, and we don't want to put too much pressure here on the circuit board. So we'll just let it rest on the VFO, and we'll go ahead and remove this one screw from the bezel here at the top, and it's a countersunk screw. Right, now the bezel slides right off. Now this exposes these 2 screws. So we'll go ahead and get those removed. And they're both countersunk screws. There's 2 more just like it on the bottom. Get them out of the way. We'll reach back here on the back and we'll pull our RCA connector wire off. And then we can reach in and pull off our power wire. Alright. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is remove the 2 screws out of the bearing plate. And there's 1 screw right here that we'll remove. Yeah, I see your little washer. I'm going to go rolling off. Okay. Now if everything is not frozen up, I'm going to just take my fingers and wipe over this outer brass. And we should be able to pull this bearing off if it's not frozen. And you can see it came right off. Then we'll go ahead and move this last screw here. Just kind of pry it out right easily. And now we see the reason why we went ahead and removed all these screws. This way when we pull the VFO out, our indicator board right here is loose and out of the way, so everything will slide right away from it. I noticed when I pulled this knob off, I said, God, this knob is heavy. It ain't nothing like the one on the 520 or anyone I have seen. So I turned it over and looked inside of it. And as you can see, someone has filled this up with solder all the way around it. And that's put some weight on this knob. I'm also seeing it cracked. Crack there and a crack there. And that was probably due to all this heat coming in this knob. It's really amazing that it didn't crack the outside of it. But it looks pretty good. Sure got some weight to it. So I wanted to, check where this backlash was coming from. And you see there's a gear here. There's a gear here. And I can put my hands on them and kind of lock them. And that backlash is completely gone now. I don't feel it at all. And the knob, is connected to the inner shaft. As you can see here, with the inner shaft that goes inside. And even if I hold the outer shaft, I am not feeling that backlash at all. Take my little duck bill pliers and hold the shaft, because it's completely smooth inside. There's no knurled area in it. Very interesting. But that backlash is completely gone now. So you can't do that with a regular 520 VFO. They just ain't made to spin like this. That's because of the weight that was added to it. No backlash at all. Interesting. Anyway, what we're going to do now is go ahead and remove this screw here on this side. Make sure we don't lose our little washer. Then we'll move the screw on the other side. Find the Now all we do is loosen this little nut on the back, and you'll find that it shouldn't be tight at all. It's just kind of snug up on there. And the thing is, a lot of people look at it and they'll grab the 5/16 nut driver. Well, it's not a 5/16. It's a odd size. And there's a little Loctite on it. I'm going to take that right off, and the little star washer that's behind it. There we go. sometimes they want to be a little bit stubborn. Just give it a little nudge on each side. Yeah, she's really holding on there. There it goes. Now we can get in here and inspect our capacitor. I'll show you that grease I was telling you about. They put it in different places. You can see this greenish looking grease right here. That stuff is just as hard as it can be. No longer pliable. And right here in the ball bearing end, there's some of that same grease is in there, and you can see flaking some of it off in there. And also on this end, you can see it here. It's all hard. And all that's got to come out of there. And all I'm going to do is just take some contact cleaner and a little bit of acetone and some, go in here and clean all this up and get everything loose. And then go back in there and retension the spring. And then put some fresh lube in it. And it'll be good to go. The next thing is that there's usually a couple of caps up here that change value, and these ceramic caps. It's going to be these two red ones down here. And you probably can look on the schematic and see the value, but sometimes these caps are hand picked. Over here on this side you'll see a coil and your trimmer. This is where you trim it for your band spread. Alright, after I removed this old grease, I noticed that there is some corrosion down under here. Now, if you see this little clip here, it goes onto the rotor of this variable capacitor. And it makes contact here, and then it goes up against the body of the capacitor. If we turn it around, you can see right down here under this red wire that clip comes through here and is soldered to the outside of the capacitor body. And then there's a yellow wire, and it comes up and goes to this tab for your RCA out. which is your single out. So the connection is probably pretty good here on this end of the clip. And where the problem is going to be is this old grease where this clip goes against this shaft. So what we're going to have to do is remove all this solder off that end of that clip. We'll stick a little screwdriver here and pry it out, then we'll push this clip off. That way we can clean this end of this the shaft, this groove that it rides in, and clean this clip itself. So to make this job a little easy, instead of pulling this capacitor out and then having to go back in and solder it and realign everything back up, if you just take your power port, remove the 2 screws, you'll have to bend the contacts or the terminals in a little bit, pull it right through, stick your screws back in there. Also on this nut that's on the back, there's 3 washers on the inside that you don't see when you pull this apart. Make sure you don't lose those washers. They keep the cover from crushing in too far and bending. Just go ahead and put the hardware back on there and it'll tighten up and you ain't got to worry about nothing falling off. So now I'll go ahead and I'll heat up my big solder there, and we can go ahead and melt this solder here and get our spring clip pulled out enough so we can slip it out. Well, I got the big iron heating up, and usually when I try to heat it up I'll take it out of this metal stand because this acts like a heat sink and it'll pull some of the heat out of my iron. So I'll just let it sit there and heat up, and then it'll get good and hot because it's going to take quite a bit of heat. You're not going to take your regular soldering station and heat this enough up to melt that solder. But as that's going on, I'll go ahead and let you know a few things. Since you got this out, it's a good idea. You'll go ahead and pull the 2 screws on the top of this board, desolder this little link here and this one here, lift this board up and go ahead and touch up the solder joints on the back of this board. There's a few known problems with the Kenwood VFO, having some questionable solder joints on the back of the VFO board, and looking at it I can see a few that are very shallow, even here on this ground side. I don't know if I can zoom in on this enough where you can see. You can see them couple of ground lugs right there. You know, it's very shallow solder. I probably could take an X-Acto knife and pull that terminal right out of that trimmer. And anything like that is going to cause the VFO not to function correctly. You'll get some wobble and you'll get a little bit of drifting, and you know, it just won't be stable. So you know, it's a good time to go ahead and do that now while you got the VFO out, even if it's the VFO inside the radio. And I suggest go ahead and doing that to any of them that you're working on, just to, you know, be on the safe side. So sometimes if you get a problem with drifting, a lot of time it's just mechanical. You know, that's something, you know, I call a solder joint mechanical too. But you know, you could have play in your VFO. There's a locking nut here on the back of the variable capacitor. Sometimes you can tighten that up. But a lot of times, you know, solder joints and these little, you know, your gearing stuff, anything can cause the VFO to act a little strange. Sometimes you can have to go up here and change out some capacitors that's, you know, has aged and fell out of tolerance. Okay, we got the retaining clip in there, the ground strap, what we might can call it, unsoldered, and that was a bit of a job even for the old Weller gun to get that thing heated up and get it out. a little bit hot here. You reposition the camera here. I got to have room to work around this here. Should be able to just grab this clip and pull it right out. We'll let it drop right off into the floor or into the workbench. And you can see there it is. You can see dry grease and a little corrosion on the back of it. That grease is just as hard as it can be. Now we can get into the back of the VFO capacitor here and clean out that area right in here. And we'll be able to rotate this around so we can get the whole thing cleaned out. Now this shaft is sitting on a ball bearing and it's tensioned by this set screw and locking collar here. So if you know, I've seen people take these out. I got no problem taking them out, but if you're not used to doing something like that, you don't have to take it out. You can go ahead and just clean it with a little fiber brush and some, I would suggest either some acetone, you know, like you buy at the dollar store for fingernail polish remover, or some lacquer thinner if you have it. Either one works real good. Well, you can get in there and get everything good and clean. Well, I've got both ends of the capacitor cleaned, and that took a little bit of work with some acetone, small brush, and some Q-tips and isopropyl alcohol, and just clean all this up. I've also removed the solder out of the hole because our wire has to go back in there, plus our end of our spring clip and all that will be soldered back in place. So hopefully that will take care of our grounding issue, and then we'll re-lubricate that with some white grease, and that white grease will stay in there a long time. So if you're putting this little spring clip back in there, go ahead and give it a good bend, put some of the tension back in it. And what we'll do, we'll just come back here in the back and we'll slide it straight in. You know, try not to bend it. You just want to get it back straight in there. And once we get it in, then we can take it and we'll rotate it and clip it in the hole. Now that I got it so I can work with it, you can see the little tab that gets soldered right there. So we're just going to take a little small screwdriver and we're just going to rotate this until we can get it down in that hole. And it just takes a little guidance. You got to get the spring clip pushed back far enough this way to miss this stop here. And don't use your plates to pry on. It's not hard to move. And we'll push it back in. And there it is. It fell right into the hole. Now all I got to do is just redress our wire here with the heat. Eat the insulation up, and then we'll stick it in the hole, and I can go ahead and solder that back in place. Okay, so now the spring clip is in the hole, and I got the wire in the hole, and I got a address lead to that will slide back down over this bare wire. Even though it's ground, you know, we'll just go ahead and dress it back like it was. Only thing we're going to use is some clear anyway. But I'll go ahead and get this soldered back in place, and then we just want to go ahead and test out the VFO. Alright, our clip is back in and everything is soldered up. We got our wire back in, got it dressed, and just, you know, to make sure that you got that spring clip sorted good, just take a small flat bead screwdriver, stick behind it on the solder end, give it a little twist. If you see that move, you don't have it soldered. That really needs to be soldered correctly to this mount. If not, corrosion can get back under it and you're not going to have any ground whatsoever. And you can see how nice and shiny our little ball bearings in that end is. And all we're going to do is take some silicone grease and fill that right up and let it wash down. And we'll shake it up real good and get a foam out of it. And we'll let that sit for a minute. Then we'll take a Q-tip and just go in there and clean up anything that's left over. And then we'll go in and I'll go ahead and do the other side the same way. So these wires that we saw loose in here, they actually go to the dial lights. And you know, there was nothing on them. They was just twisted together and soldered. Guys, when you're doing repairs on stuff, go ahead and take the time and do it right. And what I've done is just put clear heat shrink over top of them. And you can see there's one wire here that has some tape on it. And you see how it just pulled right off? The wire come completely in two. Go ahead and take the time, prep the wires, tin the tips, put some heat shrink on them, or some spaghetti wrapping, you know, or anything, and go ahead and do it right. It's nothing that, you know, really disturbs me more to see somebody clip out something. And what it is, the bulbs probably went bad and someone just spliced in some new ones and just didn't take the time to do it correctly. Okay, so I'm sitting here working on the VFO and I'm doing some testing, and tragedy struck, and I saw smoke come out the back of the radio and come out the VFO. So I guess now we'll just take this old radio and the VFO and chunk it over there in the parts pile and give up on it. That won't never happen, don't worry. Let me share this little strange encounter I had just a little while ago. So as you see when you're working on the VFO and you got the bottom cover off, you got, you know, the back panels loose. So that's no problem. Everything is just simply laying out of the way. And I'm working on the lights that go into the front panel to illuminate the dial. I moved the VFO slightly, and that's when tragedy struck. And smoke come out of the back of the radio, and smoke come from underneath the PCB board. So what happened is, if you look at the back of the radio in all its glory, I've already fixed it. But this socket is nothing more than a tube socket. And I had a partner in here with me, showing him a few things when this happened. And the ring that holds the socket in cracked on both sides. The socket poured out. The AC voltage and the 9-volt source shorted to the radio. And it happened so quick, and then it popped the 2 amp fuse this on the other end of the radio that drives the 14-volt source. And I said, what in the world? So I went ahead and fixed the tube socket, checked out the radio, everything's fine. The smoke was just the rust burning off the back of the radio when the power hit it. Luckily the fuse caught. But the VFO didn't fare quite as real. So I got to fix that. And let me get focused in on it here. I done cleaned the trace up. It was burnt completely in two. I'll raise the VFO up just a little bit so y'all can see it. But the other trace that goes from right here, you see it coming around, it splits off over here, and then it goes up, and you can see where there was a trace at, and it goes right on up to our connector. It burnt that trace off, and it also burnt this little trace off right here. So I done cut the traces back and removed the old burnt solder trace. So I'm going to cut 2 new pieces of foil and tack solder them in on both pieces, and then I'll cover it with some conforming coating. And then we should be able to check out our VFO and see if anything else is damaged in it. Hopefully not. So I normally wouldn't do this on cam, but since we're right here, I got a piece of copper. I think it was video number 19. You can go back and look at to see where I got this. It was on repair circuit traces. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and cut me out a little thin strip. And then we'll put this back in the package so it doesn't get damaged. I'll turn it over. And on the back side of this copper, it's oxidized. So one side is pretty and shiny, and the back side is a bit oxidized. And that's going to be hard to show you do this, you know, without getting the camera right in the way. But all I'm going to do is take an X-Acto knife. Scrape off the end. Yep, that looks real good. I'll move my VFO into range. Now I'm going to take it and measure how much I need to scrape for the other side. Okay, I can see that. No need of scraping the copper off the whole thing, just only where you're going to tack solder the trace back down. Well, I'll reposition the camera. Okay, I'll try to get the camera in view. It's kind of tough to get to with the camera in the way, but we see, can't we work through this a little bit. All I'm going to do is just kind of rough up this solder trace on each side. So we can get a good solder bond. And I'll put a little bit of flux on it. Clean off the iron a little bit. Be just slightly 10 those on each end. Alright, now I need my tweezers and watch them be right somewhere. Well, I can't get to them. Right, here we go. That thing is just bouncing all over the bench. Okay. I'm hoping y'all can see this. I can't see the camera from here. I'm not going to put no underbond under this. I really don't think it's necessary for such a short run. Now this is already 10, so we should be able to just bring that pad right back together. I've got another piece here that I'm going to put on the other side. Now don't get me wrong, there is nothing at all wrong with running a jumper wire if that's what you need to do. I have no problems at all doing that. In fact, I do it myself quite a bit. But when you got the proper stuff to do it with, we might as well go ahead and do it the right way. And there we go. Let me reposition the camera. Okay, you tell me, is that acceptable? Does that look okay? So we got a new trace here, and a new trace going this length down here. Now I'm going to just take it and I'm going to clean the board with some isopropyl, and then I'll mix up some conformal coating and put over it, and that'll hold everything in place. I apologize for not getting this under the microscope so y'all could have seen the repair of the circuit traces on the VFO. I know I said I was going to get a camera for the third port on the microscope, but I have yet to get a camera. I had ordered one of those cheap ones, like $79, and it just didn't work out right. I sent it back, and the one I want is over 249 bucks to give, because I want y'all to get decent quality videos. I don't want nothing that's not going to look correctly. So until I can get enough funds in the kitty, maybe later on, what little I get, I'm putting into repairs of stuff, and it just takes a while to get the stuff up, but we'll get it one day. Just stick with me. Well, our VFO is all back together. You can see our VFO light is on. We're in the receive mode, and I'll see if I can focus in on this scope for you. You can see we are putting out a sine wave that's very stable. Nothing like it was before, and I can tune just a little bit. You're not going to see a whole lot of movement on the scope, just tuning a little bit, but you can see it is completely stable when I turn the VFO. So that problem of the erratic tuning is now gone, and all it took was a little cleaning and then repairing the circuit board. Well, socket jumped out and punched some traces off, but all that's fixed now, so everything is back together. So I'll go ahead and remove my scope probe, and we'll test it on there and make sure it's working alright. Okay, we got both units are on. Turn the volume up.
David, very good, nice signal here. 5-9, real good signal. You haven't got washed away, I take it, huh? Iowa, and I'm running a Collins KWM2. Oh, excellent. Excellent, George. Really strong signal. Appreciate the call. KE0HG.
Excuse me.
N6 cam. Clear with you, George.
I mean, the tuning is just super smooth.
I need your name, your state, and your rig. Go ahead.
We'll switch back over to radio, and that was on about 280.
ESZ, and carry that to the classic radio contest, over. Okay, the Juliet Sierra portable station again, please, over.
I'm hoping they would talk long enough. I just wanted to switch between the internal VFO and the external.
Echo Juliet Sierra portable. You're 507, you're Los Angeles. Name is Rocco. And we're ready to train TR4. I need your name, your state, and your rig. Go ahead. or Gulf of Mexico, but what state? Over. Okay, got Bob. And what state is it? Is that Florida? Over. Okay, got it.
Okay, our VFO is completely stable. Now, he ain't even got the cover on it yet. No problems with that. So what I'll do, I'll make sure everything is lined up on the dials, and I'll get the cover on. But we'll go ahead and right after this video, I'm gonna go ahead and move into the pre-recorded video of the repair of this frozen knob that was in here. And you saw in the last video after we went through it that it's all freed up. I just didn't get time to put that footage in with this one. But when you're working on one of those and you got this front nut is froze up, grab some here. If you'll just get you one of these C-clamps, and you can see how I milled the end down. That's probably about 4 millimeters thick, and then milled the end of it out. That way it'll go around the shaft, and you can use this to pull that bearing off if it's frozen. And you'll see that in the video that's following right up in this one. It'll all be one video. I'll just add that back to it. Well, as you can see, I got the front of the unit off. Like I say, I was able to get the bearing free from this carrier, and the problem is I cannot get the carrier off this shaft. I'll zoom in on it so you can get a closer look at it. This bearing right here is seized to this brass shaft. Now I done put some metal behind it and heated it with my hot air gun, and still won't able to get it off. So what I had to do was go in here behind here and took this nut loose, and there's a carrier in there that has 4 ball bearings, and this allowed the main tuning shaft to come out because it's gear reducted, and we didn't want to damage that shaft, so I went ahead and got it out of the way. So probably what I'm going to have to do is keep lubricating this thing, and now that I got it so I can expose more of the bearing, is try heating this bearing again and putting a big heat sink on this to keep the heat off the brass but heat that steel bearing, and hopefully before long I can pry this off. Now you can't get the VFO mechanism out without taking everything apart on the front and removing the whole front panel, and I'm trying to keep from doing that. But it looks like that may be the route I have to go. But I'm going to keep playing with this thing a little bit. Now when you take this inner carrier off, if you get one like this, be careful because there's 4 ball bearings in there. They'll drop down to the bottom when you pull it off. This is why I have this level laying here. So when the bearings fail, they would not run off my bench and be lost in the floor. Luckily I was able to save all 4 bearings without losing any this way. So that's where I'm at the moment. But we got to get this off so we can service the VFO. Well, every once in a while you just have to get creative. After heating and this and that, I never could get this bearing to slide off. So I went out and got a C-clamp out of the garage, and I modified this end of it and just cut it back and made it so I could slip this back behind and catch the bearing, not the back of this but the other side of the bearing itself. And we'll give this a try and see if we can get it to work. I think I got to straighten the handle out a little bit. I didn't notice this one was bent. Give me just a minute. Well, it does work better if you can get one that's got a, hasn't been used and beat to death. But as you can see, Our bearing is sliding off. You have to be a little bit delicate, but you know, there ain't but just so much you can do. So I'm gonna have to stick something in here to build it up to get it to slide off just a little bit more. Have to find something that'll slide into that shaft. Yeah, this old C-clamp is really, it's seen better days, but you know, it is what it is. Alright, got it off a little bit more. And now my head of this nut is a little bit too big. Alright, so I got a little standoff. We're going to slip in here. Just to give it a little extra something to push against the shaft. And look at that. Our bearing plate is off without doing too much damage. I might have to clean this end up a little bit in case I nicked or scored it, which is very possible. You see the shaft don't want to go back in. Then we just take a drill bit and we'll ream this out after we take the whole mechanism out. So no big deal there. That is perfectly fine. But the good thing is we got this thing out without destroying it. When you're taking this out, so you don't want to pull on this because you can damage the bearing carrier. And that we don't want to do, because the only way we could find another one of these is from a junk radio that could be possibly be restored. And you know, I hate scrapping out any radios. And the VFO is out. Now it's a little bit of work to get the VFO out without taking the front panel off. You have a wire harness that goes directly across the top of the VFO. And you have this board here. You can take this board loose, and then you can take the metal frame under it out, unplug the power that's down here, little 2-pin connector, and the VFO single cable. Remove the 3 tie wraps from the wire harness, and you can work the VFO out without much trouble. It's just, you know, a little time consuming. But looking at our VFO gear, and you can see how tarnished and corroded everything is. So we'll have to clean this up. Also, the you know, the shaft has dropped back since I took the inner shaft out. So we'll have to retension the springs on this gear here that takes up the backlash, because once this drops down below, there you are. See, it's supposed to be up in that gear like this. You can see the main gear here from the shaft goes to that gear on the back. When this goes forward, then it drops the upper gear, and we now lose our spring tension. But I'm gonna have to take this apart if I can clean all this this stuff here and get it well lubricated. Plus I got to clean the hole back out and sand this here down, this outer shaft, get all the nicks and burrs so everything go back smoothly. And we'll take our bearing cap and set it into some penetrating oil and just let it sit in there so it'll get itself good and lubricated. So what I've done is remove the front plate from the VFO gear mechanism, and I have the front plate here, and I have got the shaft out. I did take a file and knock some of the burrs off, but this is how I usually polish a shaft like this. I'll chuck it up about a 1/4 inch into a drill. Then I'll take some fine emery paper and that'll get it nice and, you know, get all the burrs and stuff off of it. Now I'll go back with some Scotch-Brite across it and turn it and polish it out real good. This way we're not moving, you know, removing any material. We're just cleaning up what we got here, because you don't want to remove any material, because that'll give it a little slop on the inside. But that's basically how I would do a gear. Then when I take it off, I'll just hand polish the little bit that's stuck into the chuck. Now the Scotch-Brite I use is not the green stuff that you use for scouring pans. This is bought in the dollar store. It's about a 1/4 inch thick, and it usually comes in a pack of 6 and they're different colors. This is a lot finer Scotch-Brite, and it does a real good job of polishing stuff out. Get you just a little bit of WD-40. Spray on there on you. You know, it just takes just a little bit, not a whole lot. Now you can see our shaft. It's just about like new. Now I'll remove this and I'll polish out the other end like I said a while ago. Then I'll take some contact cleaner and wash out the inside. Everything will run out of these 4 holes. There's no end hole in this end here. So, you know, we'll get that good and clean. Then I'll go ahead and clean up the inner shaft and get this mechanism back together. And then I'll start working on cleaning up and lubricating this. Now the lubrication I like to use is made by Dow Corning, and it's an assembly paste, and the stuff will last forever and will not harden. So now what we have to do is work on the inside hole, and we simply just find a drill bit that is a little bit too big to fit in the hole, and we'll turn in here and we'll turn it, and that'll just ream out anything that's, you know, protruding inward. Then we'll take a piece of emery cloth and we'll roll it up real tight so it just can fit into this. As you can see, a piece of emery cloth is stuck into the end of it, and we have it in our drill. And all we wanted to do was just clean out this hole just a little bit. Now we'll blow this out and test fit our inner shaft. So when you do this, you notice the drill I have has a hand tightened chuck don't use one with the key where you got to tighten down on stuff, because you can really damage the material. This one right here is just loosely tightens onto it. But anyway, the only thing I cleaned this shaft with was Scotch-Brite. Don't use any sandpaper or anything on this. And if I done this right, this will fit all the way up to this neck here. And that goes together great. So now, I said before there was 4 ball bearings that go in this coupler. There's actually 5. There'll be one that sits at the end, and there's one in each one of these holes here. So you'll have 5 ball bearings all together in this. Alright, so now it's time to put all this back together, and we'll lube it and get everything back in here. And the first thing you do is put your fingers over these 3 holes here, and you're going to drop 2 of the ball bearings down inside the tube. 1, 2, and you can see one ball bearing sit down in the hole. Now when you take your shaft and you slide your shaft in, it will touch the other ball bearing. If you notice the shaft is not all the way down, you can push it. There's a spring in the bottom. So this will slide up through here. And what you do is just drop this down low enough so you can get all 3 of the other ball bearings in the hole, and then push this down, and then you can put your cap on and screw it in place, and that'll hold this whole mechanism together. And it's going to be too hard to do on camera, so I'll probably do this off camera. But I got to lube everything up. Well, I have the VFO all put back together and put back in, and I don't have the white dial in yet. There's got some calibration and got to go through on that. But I went ahead and stuck the outer bearing in, and all I want to do is just check the operation of the VFO control, and it is smooth. Just a little resistance on it, just like I like them. I don't want to be able to take one and spin it on an old radio like this, because that makes it too sensitive. And she's all lubed up in there and is working like a charm. Now I got to go ahead and fix these switches over here, get this wire harness back in place like it's supposed to be, and then put the LED board back in, and that'll be another accomplishment done on this radio. Well, I hope you found these videos on the VFO from the Kenwood TS520SC series helpful and useful to you. We did not have to get into a lot of electrical repair on the VFOs. It was 99% mechanical, and most of the time that's all it is just mechanical. We will later, however, get into some electronic working theory of these VFOs. We will do some more in-depth testing later on when we go through this complete radio on an alignment point. We will be doing a series on aligning the radio fully in the future, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, if you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. That helps. Leave your comments down below. Jump on over to the website if you like. I'll leave a link down below, and discuss anything there. And I'll try to get some more pictures and stuff of the repairs on there. Just ain't had time to get much up there lately, but I am working on it. So until the next series, we'll see you then.